Time now for Vikings Fan Line on the Minnesota Vikings Radio Network. Your chance to talk about today's game with the Vikings broadcast team. Add to the conversation on Vikings Fan Line by calling 651-989-KFAN or toll free 1-800-320-5326. Now it's your reaction to all the action. Vikings Fan Line. Here's KFAN's Ron Johnson and Corey Cove.
All right, welcome to Minnesota Vikings Fan Line. I'm Corey Cove. Ron Johnson will be joining in a second. Same thing with Greg Coleman. The Vikings win in walk-off fashion with a Greg Joseph field goal. Lots of drama, lots to get to. The Vikings up to 5-5, tied for 7th in the NFC with the 5-5 San Francisco 49ers and the 5-5 New Orleans Saints. So they're going to be right there on the cusp of a playoff berth at some point here. So we got a lot of games left, 7 games to go, but this was a crucial win for the Minnesota Vikings. We'll talk about it at 651-989-5326 or 1-800-320-5326. So the Packers came in as 1-point favorites. A lot of us, including myself, thought the line was pretty strange considering the Pack came in at 8-2, 8-1 when Rodgers plays. This year seemed pretty strange, but maybe it's that cliche. You got to throw out all the records when it's the Pack and the Vikings. It's a divisional matchup. Turns out that the Vikings found a way to win behind a monster game by Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins. We'll take your calls at 651-989-5326 or 1-800-320-5326. I'll talk to Greg Coleman for a second or two when we come back, and then Ron Johnson joins after this. This is Minnesota Vikings Fan Line, and this is Minnesota Vikings football.
Your home for all things purple.
Caught! Yes!
FM 100.3 KFAN, The Fan.
A 29-yard field goal to win the game against the 8-2 Packers right hash. Joseph. Snap. Spot. Joseph! Yes, he did! He walked off on the Green Bay Packers, who have lost their first division road game in 3 years. The final score, Minnesota 34, Green Bay 31.
Welcome back to Minnesota Vikings Fan Line. I know some Vikings fans a little nervous at the end because it came down to kicking, but like Zimmer said in the postgame with Greg, you just can't give it back to Aaron Rodgers, right? You had to keep it with Greg Joseph and hope that he put it through, and he did.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen too many times where Aaron Rodgers had, seconds, fractions of seconds that has won ball games, and we've learned the hard way. So Mike Zimmer was not going to be beaten by that particular situation. And as Greg mentioned, I asked about the missed extra point early on, and he said, how soon would you forget that? He said, before I go out for the next kickoff. And that's pretty doggone quick. So that means that's a good mental approach, a good mindset for a place kicker. And that's what you want to have, because it's almost like a relief pitcher. If he gives up a home run, that's not the most important pitch. The most important pitch is the next one.
Greg, when the Vikings beat the Chargers, it felt weird. I know it was a road game. It's nice to go on the road and beat a team like Justin Herbert and the Chargers, but it didn't feel like it meant much. I know it does, but at the time you're like, okay, but where is this going to get us? This was the one that could be the game changer, right? If you lose this one, then the Chargers game doesn't mean much. But you win, you're back to 5-5, and you stay in that playoff chase with teams like the Saints and the team that you face next week, the San Francisco 49ers.
Well, Bud Grant used to always say, act like you've been there. And coming out of L.A., it was a big win. These guys knew how big that game was, but they knew that the next game coming forward was going to be a bigger game, and that was the one today against a division rival, Green Bay Packers. Now, some of the husbands and wives and girlfriends and boyfriends, they now can come back together and, after commiserating, before the game. I saw a number of couples. One gal in pregame gave me her ring because, I said, Packers and Vikings shouldn't even be mixing together. But and I say that in jest, but what a great rivalry since my coming here back in golly. I'm going to date myself. Back in 1978, my first game was against these Green Bay Packers out at Old Met Stadium. Man, and I tell you what, it's still just is if you can't get juiced and jacked to play the Green Bay Packers, then you need to go do something else.
Yep. Hey, let me ask you something, Greg, because you're on the sidelines. I'm looking over at Brandon Molesky right now and thinking about the sport of hockey and how they have 9 billion goal cameras, right? I mean, if that puck crosses the line, you have that overhead cam. There's cameras around the goal. I do not understand, for the life of me, why the NFL does not have multiple cameras permanently placed on the goal line. That Jefferson touchdown, right, that got essentially overturned, they called him down at the 1. It looks like he's stretching, but every camera angle they showed was from the wrong angle, right? Like, you can't see if he's outstretched over the line. I thought he was, but there was no definitive shot. Why do they not have goal line cameras permanently aimed at the goal line? I don't understand it.
I think that's going to come into play next year. Okay, they have a finite budget.
They don't.
I know.
No, they don't. They have billions of dollars.
Let me finish. Those particular goal line cameras go to the national televised games. This was a regional game. They only have between 8 and 15 cameras. When you go to a national televised game, you have 27 to 32 cameras, so you get angles from every which way. It's unfortunate this was listed as a top regional game, therefore you don't have multiple cameras. Thus, Justin Jefferson did not get credit for the touchdown.
Yeah, 'cause you were there. I assume you were very close to that play. It looked like, sure, his knee was down at about the 1, but it looked like he was clearly stretching over the line. But again, we just didn't have a good angle to overturn that call.
Here's my pet peeve. I remember Sammy White caught a pass and held the ball up going into the end zone, and he fumbled it. Didn't score. Bud Grant said, make that the last time that you do that. I know that this is a different era. It's a different time. But make sure you get in the end zone. Holding the ball up slows your momentum. It slows your speed. You can't be at top speed with your hands over the head. So get into the end zone before you raise your hands. And I guarantee you, had he continued to run at a top level of speed, there would never have been a question about whether he made it into the end zone.
Huge win today, 34-31. Good work, Greg. Thanks, man.
We'll take it every time.
Yeah, no doubt.
Happy Thanksgiving, boys.
You too. All right, so Ron Johnson should be joining next, and we'll get into some phone calls at 651-989-5326 or 1-800-320-5326. Vikes win 34-31 over the Pack. Vikes are 5-5. Pack fall to 8-3. This is Minnesota Vikings football.
Your home for all things purple. FM 100.3 KFAN, The Fan.
Justin Jefferson in the backfield to the right of Kirk out of the shotgun on 3rd and goal from the 9. Kirk back to pass, fires to JJ. Touchdown! It is a touchdown from Cousins to Jefferson, and they can't stop JJ. 22-10, Minnesota. Thielen and Jefferson to the right. Kirk facing a big blitz. He's hit. Loops it up to Jefferson. Caught. 5. Touchdown! Way to go, JJ! And the Vikings have taken the lead. 29-24. Cousins blasted. Indefatigable. Made him pay.
Absolute monster game for Justin Jefferson. 8 catches, 169 yards, and 2 touchdowns. 10 targets, Ron Johnson, and that comes a couple of weeks after Clint Kubiak said he was going to get the ball to Justin Jefferson more. Zimmer seemed to be pissed about that. He said he shouldn't be saying that to the media. But this is the weird thing, Ron. It's like, if you know LeBron James is in a basketball game, you know he's going to shoot 25 times. Justin Jefferson should get 10 to 14 targets every week. It's not breaking news we're trying to get the ball to Justin.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with trying to get the ball to Justin versus putting an emphasis on it with your quarterback week in and week out, and I think that's the problem. You can tell right now he's dialed into that where they've kind of given the heads up. Like, understand coverage. We just had Adam Thielen on our post-game show for the Vikings show, and Adam Thielen said that. He said, you know what, we're not really thinking about coverage as much on the field besides the guy in front of us. We come off on the sideline, and we always talk about it, and he's talking about him and Justin and Kirk, and then Kubiak. They're always talking about, hey, this is what they're doing. We have to do X, Y, and Z. And in the end, the goal is for Kirk to take the best matchup. And when he sees man-to-man coverage, like on that deep ball to Justin towards the end of the game, the fade stop, it was because he saw man coverage right away. Even though he knew a blitz was coming, he stood in there and took the hit. So I think that's going to be the emphasis going forward. The next 7 games are winnable. I think the Rams of the 7 is probably the toughest. And then of course the Packers again, but they have to be able to do this every single game. Pass to run. Don't try to set up the run first and then pass. They are a pass-first team. They're built more like, the Rams and the Colts of old when Peyton Manning was there, and it was a pass-first, group when you had Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne. It's the same scenario here, and they just have to adopt it, and Mike Zimmer just has to learn to love that.
Man, this has been the season of ifs for the Minnesota Vikings, right? So many close games, so many games that come down to the last play, so many field goals that decide the game, but how many ifs did we have today, whether it's the Greg Joseph extra point miss, the kicks that the Green Bay missed. And, of course, I would argue the biggest if is what if that corner at the end holds on to that interception? I have no doubt Aaron Rodgers is going down and getting at least 3. So, I mean, that was a game saving, I guess, drop by Savage, I believe it was, for Green Bay. Man, that was so close to a pick.
Yeah, and it could have went, I think the refs even, the fact they called it an interception, they needed inconclusive evidence, and it wasn't very inconclusive. I mean, it definitely touched the ground a little bit, but the question is it can touch the ground as long as he keeps control of his hand and it against his leg. But the good thing is, the refs were like, you know what, we're not really sure. Let's not end the game on something like this. And they just let it play back out, gave the ball back to the Vikings, and Kirk Cousins found a way to win the game.
All right, let's take a couple of calls here. Shane, Little Canada. Hi, Shane.
What's going on, Corey?
Not much.
So anyways, what I wanted to talk about was, I don't know. I don't know if you guys see it like I do, but Clint Kubiak, I just am not a fan of his play calling. I mean, I got multiple scenarios, like games on the line, right? Against the Ravens. You line up Tyler Conklin outside and you throw a slant to him with Marlon Humphrey on him, the best corner on the Ravens team. Justin Jefferson's been shredding people all game. Game's on the line. That's the play call you come up with. Don't understand it. Even like against, same thing with the Cowboys. The only deep shot we took against the Cowboys was a deep shot to Conklin down the field. I don't get it. Like today, it was actually refreshing to see him throw a deep ball. They had the one to Thielen, obviously, which he made a great play on. But, why don't they take a couple deep shots to Jefferson? Like today was the first time I've actually seen it. I don't know. Like Kubiak, I'm done with him. But, and then another thing I want to talk about or get your guys' opinion is, what is like Zimmer's made up role with this Harrison Smith role that he's like made up? He brings them up to the line of scrimmage and then for him to back off and run 30 yards back just to get out of position for then the wide receiver just to come fill the area that he was just in. Like that whole thing that they do with Harrison Smith makes absolutely no sense to me.
All right.
I mean, maybe you guys could, I literally cannot recall one time him ever making a play out of doing that.
All right, well, thanks for the call. Well, he did today, right? He came up and blitzed Ron and then sacked the quarterback. That was the play where the tackle injured his knee. So once in a while, Harrison has to threaten that. Right? He can't just be a fake, to Shane's point. He can't back up 30 yards every time. But today it worked. He did blitz and got to Aaron.
Big facts. Well, I mean, you think about it. Other teams do that. This is not a made-up Mike Zimmer thing. It's basically just disguising the coverage. Safeties sometimes stay in the box, and they cover a running back, they cover a tight end, or they cover a slot receiver. So it's not made up. It's just that Harrison Smith does it so fast and so well. But, I mean, we've seen Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu, you can name it. Honey Badger does it. They all do it, and then when they get back in coverage, the goal is to jump the next guy. The problem is, it works against teams that, you don't notice as much. Aaron Rodgers just knows how to attack that. The minute he can sense it and feels it, he can attack it. But what happened is the sack, he thought he was going to back out and he didn't. And so that's why you do that. You have to show that so that the quarterback will assume, like you're saying, and then he did. He assumed it, got it wrong. Harrison makes a sack.
Vikings win 34-31. We'll take more of your phone calls in a second. But first, let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. This is Minnesota Vikings football.
This is Minnesota's sports station. FM 100.3, KFXN Minneapolis, St. Paul. The Fan. The sports leader.
Ron, you know I like gambling, right?
Of course.
I just couldn't believe all week, and again, this is more proof that gambling's very difficult, and sometimes sports are not quite as obvious as they seem, but I just didn't understand why the Packers were only 1-point favorites. On paper, it shouldn't have been, right? I know they had a lot of injuries, but it's still freaking Aaron Rodgers, and it opened up, I think, at 2.5 or 3 points, and I thought it was going to grow. I thought it would grow to 3, 4, 5 points, but it closed at Packers -1. It just confused me. Why do you think that was the case? And obviously the Vikings just won outright.
Yeah, when you look at the win-loss differential, the point differential. And so the Vikings point differential, and we've talked about this a ton. They lost a game by 4. They lost 2 games by 3. They lost a game by 1. And then, of course, the Browns, you lose by, Browns. Browns, you lose by 7. So that was really the only game that was kind of out of touch for them, where they needed a full touchdown to win the game. The Cowboys game, you get you needed a touchdown and 2-point conversion to win the game. But the Cowboys game, you get a touchdown, you win. Also with the Packers, I don't know if it's the injuries maybe, because you look at Alan Lazard was going to be out. You had Rashawn Gary, who was a possible not going to play. You had David Bakhtiari, who wasn't going to play. And then you had the Aaron Jones knee thing. And so I think that also added to it, because if you notice today, even though he still torched the defense in the second half and he figured it out, there wasn't a lot of passes to the running back. When you look at Aaron Jones, was 28% of their offensive production as far as scoring, 25% of their yards was Aaron Jones, and so he was a different back. They would line him up at receiver and actually have him run normal type routes on linebackers. And I'm pretty sure the odds makers looked at that too. They used the injuries and I think the fact that the Vikings were getting Patrick Peterson back. Anthony Barr was healthy all week, so I think all that went into that factor of like, well, hey, if they can get it done. And you look at the Packers offense, they're only 19th in scoring, and the Vikings are 14th in scoring offensively. So it does match up for them to kind of give the small edge to the team with a better record. But looking at it on paper, even though the Packers they were third in points given up, they were still 13th in run, and everybody just assumed it was going to be a Dalvin Cook type day because of the Packers giving up 107 yards a game. It went the other way. The Vikings still threw on the third best passing defense in the NFL. The Vikings carved them up.
All right, calls when we come back, and I want to ask Ron if it's over or too early to say that it's over for a Vikings first-round draft pick. We'll talk about that in a second. This is Minnesota Vikings Fan Line. That's Ron Johnson. I'm Corey Coven. This is the KFAN Minnesota Vikings Radio Network, driven by Polaris.
We are rubes like you, and we talk Vikings football every day, too. Join us weekdays 9 to noon. Now back to Vikings football.
Tyler Conklin in motion, handoff Galvin. Touchdown! He walked through the middle of the Green Bay defense, untouched, and the Vikings have taken a 9-3 lead. 3rd and goal. Short drop, passes left, caught Thielen at the 5. He shakes into the end zone. Touchdown! A touchdown from Cousins to Adam Thielen on 3rd down. And for Adam, that's his 8th touchdown this season in his 15th game against Green Bay. And Minnesota leads 15-3. Thank you, Kingsley Keke.
They go on to win 34-31 over the Green Bay Packers. That's Ron Johnson. I'm Corey Coven. Ron, that's kind of been the story of the year, right? The Vikings having leads and blowing leads in all of their losses, right? They led the Bengals by 7, lost by 3. They led the Cardinals by 13, lost by 1. They led the Browns by 7, lost by 7. They led the Cowboys by 7, lost by 4. And, of course, they led the Ravens by 14 and lost by 3. So they had another big lead today against the Green Bay Packers. The Packers storm all the way back and tie it up. But the Vikes find a way to win with the last-second Greg Joseph field goal.
Yeah, well, I think first you look at the first 7 minutes of every game. Kirk Cousins is the number one quarterback in the NFL in the first 7 minutes of every game. So that's the scripted Kubiak plays plus some additional in there, with Kirk Cousins' next drive. And so 80% completions, first place, 415 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 144.6 passer rating, which is first. And so he starts out well. The problem was as the game would go on in the third quarter, I think Pete Burchett said it, like starting the third or the last 2 minutes of like the second quarter and then starting the third quarter, the Vikings struggled. And so today it didn't happen. Like they found ways to, and whether he scripted the first, 15 plays of the third quarter, I don't know what the secret was, but they found a way today to not fall into that trap that they fell into numerous games time and time again.
All right, the tease before the break, I said, is it over for a Vikings first-round pick? Do you think that the Mason Cole thing is legit? I know Garrett Bradbury just had COVID, so this was the first game he could be back. But Mason Cole got the start. Bradbury was technically available for the game. Is this something that is not just COVID-related, that they are a little concerned that Bradbury is not the long-term answer anymore?
Well, when it comes to post-COVID body, how you react. Some people come out of it different than others. That's something that, somebody might have to ask him if they get a chance to interview him, and if he'll be honest with it, who knows? Or it could be what you're saying. But, Mason Cole didn't do great to start the game. He was kind of on skates a little bit, but then as the game went on, they started to wear him down. You start to see him get a little bit more relaxed and comfortable. He started to anchor in, sit in there, and give Kirk Cousins time. So, he is bigger. He's 6'5", like Maybe that is the last we've seen of Bradbury, and Mason Cole's going to finish out the year. Because the thing is, when you find an offensive line group that works well together and you're winning, you don't change it just because a guy was a starter. Like if he wasn't doing great, like if we're not looking at the stat sheet or the highlights later and like, man, Mason Cole's getting blown up. If he's doing enough to stay in there, you leave him in there because he's, they look good today. Kirk Cousins wasn't running for his life. There was the one play where it kind of was Cousins' fault almost. It was a coverage sack where he should have probably just thrown the ball or just ran to his right, ran up in the hole and tried to get out of there. You can't blame that on an offensive line. So other than that, there wasn't a ton of guys just getting beat by one guy.
No, and it's one of those classic examples, right? Bradbury was a first-round pick, so you just assume he's always going to be super good. Mason Cole was a third-round pick, which is not that bad. But the Vikes had to deal just a sixth-rounder to Arizona to get him. So it's all that stuff, though, was in the past. It doesn't matter what round you were drafted in a couple of years ago. If Mason Cole is just better at 6'5", nearly 300 pounds, like you mentioned, if he's better than Garrett Bradbury, I'm going to be very curious to see how these last 7 games play out with Bradbury completely back from COVID. We'll find out, I guess, next week against the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah. Here's some calls, 651-989-5326 or 1-800-320-5326. Aaron, Maplewood, hi.
Ron, Corey, how's it going, boys?
It's good.
I just had a question. Honestly, Ron, I'm a big fan. Gopher, grateful, man. You were a dog. You were a great player. Loved watching your career. It's awesome. But I just want to know, how far can this team actually make it? Do you think the Vikes can make a run? Like today, I was fired up. I loved the victory today. But what's the plan? What can the Vikes actually do today?
What do you think, Ron? What's the ceiling for this team at 5-5 with their flaws and their strengths?
Well, he said, what can they do today? So I'm going to say they can win, and then they can go home with their families and have pizza today. But as far as the rest of the year... or Raising Cane's. But the rest of the year, I look at the 7 games left on the schedule, and I'm going to say this again. They can win all 7 games. Like it's not teams they haven't beaten. So you look at, they can beat the Lions. We know that. They can beat the Bears for sure. And they have them twice. They've already beat the Packers. So now we don't know what January 2nd, 7:20 p.m. We don't know what the weather's going to be like in Green Bay, but they can win that game. Who knows if Aaron Jones will be back, what that knee's really going to look like. But then the Rams were the world beaters, and we thought they were the next. And then all of a sudden, guy gets hurt, and then they bring in Von Miller. They bring in OBJ. You lose Robert Woods. They don't look like the same team anymore. Like, I don't know if it's too many personalities. I don't know if it was just that was a bad night. But they can beat the Rams. And then the Steelers. That's going to be a tough one, but quarterback-wise, we don't know what their situation is going to look like. And then there's the next one, the 49ers. That's the one we don't know which 49er team is going to show up. Is it the team where, they're running a ton of window dressing and you cannot figure out what this offense is? Or is it the team that we've seen this year where they just look absolutely terrible and they can't find ways to get the ball in the end zone? So, like I said, these next 7 games, they could easily go 7 or 5-2 or, 6-1 even, and possibly go 7-0. But 6-1 or 5-2 is not out of the question. So if they end up 10-7 or 11-6, they're probably in the playoffs because every team behind them is 3-6 right now, and they're playing, and some teams are losing. And then you look at the 5-5 teams that are right there with them, the Panthers, who lost. It's and then the other 5-5 team is the 49ers, which they play next week. So it's all for the taking, but or not for the taking, but it's for them to stay in this. They have to do what they have to do, and it's easily winnable. That's the ceiling. But
to your point, 5-2 is enough. If you go 10-7, you're in based on the teams that are around them. But the teams that are around them are not going 7-0 or 6-1. So 5-2 is definitely enough to get in. How about Kirk Cousins? Monster game today, 3 touchdowns. For the year now, Ron, 21 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. I know he had a couple of bullets dodged today, including that one late with about 2 minutes to go that would have maybe cost him the game, but it wasn't picked off. Doesn't matter how close it was. 21 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions this year.
Yeah, with any quarterback over, I think it's 7 touchdowns, he's the number 1 quarterback for touchdown interception ratio. So he's been doing a great job of that, not throwing the ball to other people. I think that was the other time. He used to panic a lot of times and just throw the ball, and, everybody's hands are in their, faces are in their hands, and they're pissed off about Kirk Cousins. He hasn't made those mistakes this year. And I think Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are saying, like, a lot of these 50-50 balls could easily be intercepted, but his receivers are bailing them out. They're making the catches, and they're going up and getting it. And that's been the different Kirk Cousins. He hasn't made those, like, panic mistakes where he just does something weird.
651-989-5326, 1-800-320-5326. Let's go. Kurt, Lakeville. Hi, Kurt.
Do it.
Hi, Kurt.
Hello. How's it going?
Good.
First off, I just want to say it was a great win, but what I want to ask you guys is, what do you think about the play of Xavier Woods? And Bynum played great the last 2 games, and would you possibly make a change there?
All right, thanks for the call. Obviously, Woods got torched on that long touchdown, Ron Johnson. Cam Bynum was playing instead of Harrison Smith the last couple of games, right? What do you think of getting Bynum in the mix? Because I know Zimmer was asked about that earlier in the week, and it's like, look, Cam needs to be ready because Woods is here, Smith is here, but obviously he's always one injury away from getting in there. But it's not like a corner, right? It's harder to get a safety kind of in the mix on a regular basis. It's not like you can work him in at the nickel or a dime spot, right? What do you do when you have 2 starting safeties and one that has a little bit of ability behind him?
Well, Cam Bynum is actually unique. You can work him in the nickel, in the dime, because he is a cornerback. He played cornerback last year in college. That's the reason why he was on a lot of teams' draft boards. Mike Zimmer, because of his size, Mike Zimmer saw something in him, and I think it was Rick Spielman who called him before they drafted him, if I'm not mistaken, on the video. He called and actually mentioned that to him, like, hey, we're going to draft you, but we're probably going to put you at safety. And I think, and what kid's going to say, nah, I'm good, I'll go to somebody else.
Right.
He's 6 feet, 200 pounds. So he's built. He's big. He's not like a 185 pound corner. He's a 200 pound corner. So he can actually play, which he's been doing. He's big enough to play in the box. But let's not forget, this guy was covering the top receivers in the Pac-12, for 3 to 4 years. So the kid can cover if you need him to, in the nickel, in the dime. But I would say you have to work them in there in some packages, but you probably could still sub Woods out, put Bynum in, see what you get out of it. Treat it the same way you sub in, receivers and running backs. Like, if you need to get Woods out just to see what it looks like to have Bynum next to Harrison Smith.
Sure.
Because, Woods is probably not a long-term deal. That's probably not a kid you brought in to sign long, or you thought, but maybe it's not working out. We're like, this is going to be our next guy next to Harrison for the next 4 years. Cam Bynum probably is the guy. He probably could have that Anthony Harris type trajectory where he learns from Harrison Smith, plays alongside him. He's big enough to do it. And I think that's the key, but he can cover. So it's not out of the picture. And the play that, and not to say he would have made the play, but the play that Woods got beat on was just a simple corner route. But he put all of his guys in man, and the Packers, 3 receivers all to the same side. I think Woods' mind thinks like, okay, I got 3 guys to this side. there's no way this guy's running a corner route. He's going to run a post or a deep over because he has so many other guys over here. And he did exactly it's like playing chess. He did exactly what you thought he wouldn't do, which was run the corner. And Aaron Rodgers threw it right before the receiver or the DB broke. He threw the ball, and it was a perfect play.
You just mentioned chess. Have we gone the whole year so far without you mentioning 7-deuce offsuit in poker?
Probably.
I think so. I don't think you've said it once this year.
Because we haven't got to that yet. It's been a bunch of field goals to win games and tight games. So nobody's really had to go all in with 7-2 offsuit.
I guess, and I don't think you've mentioned since preseason the vanilla with the sprinkles bit.
Yeah, because
this is an off year for you.
Well, they put Justin Jefferson in the backfield. So that's a cherry on top. Oh. That's a little bit of chocolate and caramel right there. Like it was not a vanilla look. Like
when I think chocolate, I think Clint Kubiak. All right. Ron, so we're going to do more Vikings fan line here locally, but at this point we're going to let the network go. A big game, huge game actually, with playoff implications next week at the San Francisco 49ers, 3-25, both teams with the same record. Might be the difference when it comes down to it here in week 17, 18, a couple weeks from now. But next week, 3:25 at the San Francisco 49ers. Pre-game here locally in the Twin Cities a couple hours before that, but the network joins about an hour or so ahead of time. If you want to continue to listen to Vikings Fan Line, download the iHeartRadio app. You can find KFAN 100.3 in the Twin Cities and listen to us. Otherwise, you can keep listening here locally and keep calling. And then Vikings Overtime, I believe, follows us in about an hour and change or so. So for Ron Johnson, I'm Corey Cove. Vikings win 34-31 on a last-second Greg Joseph field goal. And this has been the KFAN Minnesota Vikings Radio Network, driven by Polaris.
The Fan.
Vikings Fan Line now continues on FM 100.3 KFAN and the Fan Radio Network. Vikings Fan Line on the Fan is presented by Comcast, Honda, Youngsteads, TimberTech, Carboni's Pizzeria, and by Shift Real Estate. To join in on the conversation on Fan Line, call 651-989-KFAN or 800-320-5326. Now it's your reaction to all the action. Vikings Fan Line. Along with Ron Johnson, here's KFAN's Corey Cove.
All right, welcome back to Minnesota Vikings Fan Line. The Vikes win 34-31 over the Green Bay Packers. Ron Johnson, hi.
How's it going?
It's going pretty well. How was the actual atmosphere at the game? I assume it was festive with the drunken Scotties in town?
Yeah, they started off with the Go Pack Go. They got booed immediately, which was weird because the Vikings were on offense, so you couldn't really tell if they were booing Kirk Cousins or booing the Packer fans. And then I think after that, once the Vikings kind of going, they start going back and forth, they calmed down. But yeah, there were definitely some drunken hallway conversations I heard when I went when I was like headed out and went downstairs and all the other stuff. But it's a loss for them, so they have to drive all the way back in sorrow.
I saw on social media that you ran into Danielle Hunter in the press box. What do you think the Vikings pass rush has looked like without Danielle these last handful of weeks?
Well, having one dominant force, they don't have that. But I think Mike Zimmer's done a great job of getting a bunch of guys utilized. Everson Griffin playing way more snaps than they probably had thought he would have to play when they brought him in. Now playing, I think 100% or 90-something% of the defensive snaps. But he's like I said, the Harrison Smith sack. You look at the pressure of Barr and Kendricks in the A gap. He's finding the Cam Bynum sack last week. Like he's finding ways. Sheldon Richardson had had a couple good pressures today. DJ Wanham had a couple pressures today. So they're finding ways to get there, but it's not that one dominant guy that at any time he wants to turn it on, he can pressure the quarterback 4 to 5 times in a row. I think that's what's missing.
Sure. Back to the calls. Let's try Carl from South Minneapolis. Hi, Carl.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you, guys. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
3 quick blessings. Number one, love you guys. You're great. Corey, even though you mentioned the 3 R's on air, I still love you. I enjoyed the game.
R's.
The refs were very good today. My comment is, and my question I'd like you to talk about is, defense was great today to start the 1.75 quarters, and then after that they really faded, and that is a pattern that seems to happen. I'll stay on the line if you guys want to ask me a question.
All right, yeah, thanks for the call. Yeah, the defense, of course, Ron, all season long has struggled mightily. Those final 2 minutes of the first half, I assume that's what he meant by 1.75 of quarters of good defense.
Mm-hmm.
What do you even do about that? I mean, Zimmer obviously has been frustrated about that. They are the worst in the league, the final 2 minutes of the first half. What do you do about it? If your defense is playing well, and I'm not saying they have always played well in the first half, but they mostly have until those final 2 minutes. How can you possibly coach that up? What do you do?
Honestly, from a defensive standpoint, I don't know. Like offensively, what you would do is like if you know you're struggling in the second half, like towards the end of the half, trying to go in the half and get a score, you have to look at the plays that work. So defensively, maybe that's the same thing. Look at what's been working for you and maybe don't do that. So if at the end of the half, if they're, a little too passive and they're just sitting back in like a easy zone look, trying to, whatever, keep the guys in front of them, whatever the cliche term they might use. If that's the case, maybe get out of that and go back to your pressure packages and just play it like normal. I don't know. I don't know the reason for it. I don't know if it's just a lapse in judgment. I don't know if it's, the players can see the clock running down too. It's like, it's almost halftime. There's no real answer besides the fact that some teams most of the teams they've been playing have been getting real aggressive, trying to flip that, that momentum where they can get that score going in a half, knowing they're not going to get the ball back.
Yep. Our buddy Cy Amundsen's on the phone. Hi, Cy.
Oh, sweet baby Corey. What a day.
Oh, man. How's it going?
What a day. I heard a couple calls, the dude who was pretty upset about Kubiak. You're like, today? You're like,
right.
I get it, but that seems like an odd day to call and be like, listen, it's time for that guy to go. On top of just loving beating the Packers, a couple years ago, I made a piece of content for the Minnesota Vikings where I roasted Packer fans, and a bunch of, I'm assuming, former junior college baseball players that live in Wisconsin found my Instagram handle, and now anytime we play the Packers, they are ruthless for a week, just private messaging me, like, not even in public to be funny. Like they're trying to push me over the edge, I think, as a human being. And so anytime we can get a win like this, it feels good. And, I feel like in that vein, I should point out before we get to the football stuff here that 66 of Wisconsin bridges are currently on the United States most dangerous bridge list. I don't know if you know that. That is, I assume, because Wisconsin citizens are standing on them. So suck it, Packer fans. I'm feeling good.
Well done. Well said. Yeah, and you nailed it, dude. 341 yards out of Cousins, 86 yards for Cook on the ground. I mean, we got like 500 yards of offense, damn near. I mean, that's a solid game. Again, I haven't been a huge Clint Kubiak fan all year long either, but today, to your point, is a very strange day because I thought the offense did fine.
Well, and you look at, like, I'm a psychopath. You know that. So when I tell you this, you're going to be like, that was your favorite moment today? Like, my favorite moments today were after the Packers scored, first down, new drive, Kirk Cousins drop back, goes deep down the field to Thielen, almost gets picked off, right? We go to KJ right before the half, missed the pass a little bit. Like, there were 3 or 4 moments where we made kind of questionable, iffy passes that were almost picked or they were bad incompletions, but you're like, that just hasn't been there all year. And I think that's the reason you get the Jefferson touchdown at the end of the half and some other things. So I heard you guys talking about Kirk Cousins is like two interceptions to 17 touchdowns.
21,
honestly,
yeah.
21. If he winds up with 6 picks this year, like he throws 4 or 5 more the rest of this year, that's probably a good thing. Because if he keeps taking chances like this, dude, we're going to be, at least present.
Yeah, well said. And actually, I think Zimmer even kind of hinted at that, right? Zimmer seems to be the kind of guy that never wants to turn the ball over ever. But if you've been reading between the lines these last couple of weeks of press conferences, I think that's almost exactly what Zimmer is saying is like, look, we can afford an interception or two if you're going to take some 40-yard shots once in a while, right? That's the equivalent of like a punt anyway, right? Those are the ones that you can afford, the deep ones.
Dude, he said it after the game with Coleman. He was like, I'm not going to throttle us down. Go. You're like, and I think a lot of fans are like, sure, you're not. But I kind of genuinely believe him. The other thing to like hop on that last caller there, that's what I'm doing, Corey. I am just listening to Fan Line, and I'm going to react to the other callers, like
Twitter.
a lunatic.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, this is real life Twitter for me. Everybody, I'm so confused by everybody's expectations for defense in the NFL these days. I think with the way they're changing rules and how potent offenses are, I think you'll get to a point where defense is just like making important stops at important moments. And everybody talks about the last 2 minutes and a half, which have been a disaster. But to me, the problem there was the defense was incredible through the first half. It was 16-3. We got the ball back on a punt. There were about 6 minutes left in the first half. All you got to do is get a couple of first downs, get a little momentum, push it down the field. Even if you have to punt, you pin them. But we got that nice chunk play to, I think, Thielen on first down, and then it was a run and second down, and it was a fullback sweep to C.J. Ham on
That was a
third,
confusing call, yep.
And
confusing.
It's stuff like that where you're like, that's what puts you in the situation to give up those points. Like, I don't, without Danielle Hunter, I know we got a lot of good defensive players, but I expect this defense to be like a bend, don't break, make a couple good stops in a row to let if we go down and we go up 19-3 there or 23-3, axe this thing. So I guess I don't have the same expectations of the D as everybody else.
Right on. Hey, Si, let me end on this. I don't know if you've been following our push the last couple of days on Twitter, but Mike Birbiglia is going to be in town in February, and we're going to temporarily treat him like he's Tom Hanks. Just because he happens to be here on a Friday, we've been begging Birbiglia to play initials, and he's liked a couple of tweets, but we haven't got a true response yet. Do you, on a personal level, know him at all? You ever cross paths with stand-up comedian Mike Birbiglia or not?
We'll get it done. Let's talk off the air about it.
Is that right? All right, Si. Thanks, buddy. Good to hear from you.
Love you guys.
All right, see ya. Si Amundsen, Ron Johnson. All right, let's take more phone calls after this. The Vikes win 34-31 over the Packers. This is Minnesota Vikings Fan Line on KFAN and the Fan Radio Network.
Tyler Conklin in motion, handoff Dalvin. Touchdown! He walked through the middle of the Green Bay defense untouched, and the Vikings have taken a 9-3 lead.
Welcome back to Minnesota Vikings Fan Line. I'm Corey Coe from the Power True Morning Show, along with former Gopher and NFL wide receiver Ron Johnson. Hi, Ron.
How's it going, Corey?
Good. Your Gopher squad rolled.
Yep. I was the sideline reporter for the game.
Yeah,
it was a great one.
I heard you sniped Gerdzy's gig because he's got 15 jobs, so he's got some other duty, and you filled in. I didn't hear it, but I'm sure you did fine.
Yeah, no, it was good. We did some sideline reporting. I got a chance to get, see the coaches make an in-game change to shut down. The quarterback for Indiana ran for like eight rushes for 50 or 60 yards or something in the first drive, and then nothing after that. They went punt, interception, punt. But, so Joe Rossi, just watching them in-game make the changes, being close enough to, report on that kind of stuff, seeing the touchdown. I was right there when Chris Hoffman-Bell made his touchdown. I was right there. I got a chance to talk to the tight ends coach about what they're going to do with Brevin Spanford. So seeing those plays work out. And then the post-game, I was a little nervous. Post-game interview with PJ Fleck was a little nerve-wracking, but got through it and it went good. So it was fun.
Is that the first time you've done that for any team?
Sideline reporting, yeah, because normally, for FS1 and Fox and Big Ten Network, I'm just in the booth, so we don't do the interview stuff. That's always our sideline reporter. So
it's a different beast.
It is different when it's just you and the mic and a coach, and you gotta come up with your own, 7 to 8 questions, and But it was the good thing. It was a win. Like at first, the first drive, I was like, oh crap, I got to deal with a grumpy PJ Fleck. But no, they end up winning the game and handedly. I mean, they blew it out, and so it was an easy interview.
Tim Farmington, you are on Minnesota Vikings Fan Line. Hi, Tim.
Yeah, you were just talking about the Gopher win yesterday, and we had some really bad announcers on the Big Ten Network. I just wanted to, I synced it up and listened to Ron on the sideline. That was so cool on the radio broadcast. So thank you for you being such a big Gopher rube. And I just wanted to touch on, you kind of led with your show about the camera angles. Now, you look at college football, they have pylons behind the whole end line and down, the pylons on the end zone with cameras embedded in those pylons. And it's like, how can the NFL get duped on that. Why wouldn't the NFL do the same thing? So it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
I totally agree.
Totally agree as well. I mean, look, Ron, every racetrack in the country has cameras at the finish line of a horse race.
Yeah.
Right? Because if it's a nose-to-nose race, if it's a photo finish, you have to see whose nose crossed the line first.
Yep.
Why do we not have cameras with that exact angle, right? A 90-degree angle perpendicular to where Justin Jefferson was going, so we can see if the ball crossed the plane before his knee was down. It makes no sense. And by the way, which is also another reason, that was a terrible challenge by Zimmer. I know we won, so we shouldn't nitpick because, look, that was a maybe season-saving win. But you go back and you go, what angle did anybody from the Vikings see that was clear they were going to overturn it? Because every angle they showed, I said in my head, I'm like, well, I think he's over the line, but I definitely can't prove it. Right? And the call on the field was that he was down at the 1. There wasn't one definitive shot that they showed where he was definitely over. I think almost all of them, in my head, he was, but we'll never be able to know because they don't have a freaking camera on the goal line. It makes no freaking sense. And I know Greg was, because Greg's the nicest guy ever, was trying to say, look, there's a finite budget for every game. There's a limited number of cameras for every game. That's unacceptable when you're a billion-dollar industry. And as sports gambling gets expanded and all of us are going to have money on all these games, you got to get these calls right.
Right.
And to not have a camera on the goal line is absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah, I don't think it's the NFL's job, though. I think it's the networks carrying the game.
It's both, dude.
And some of the well, I mean, the NFL, yes, they can say, hey, why don't we have this? But when you look at the groups carrying the game, because there are some games, and I don't know if they use it for that, but there are pylon cameras in some NFL games. I've seen it. So I don't know which network has them. But I know, and I don't know if it's like the primetime games or the Sunday night games or something, but I know I've seen it because I've seen them talk about, the pylon cam got knocked over. So I have seen that, unless I'm making that up in this college.
No,
but
that's,
I'm pretty sure I've seen that in NFL.
Right, but that's what Greg was referencing earlier. So, right, the big time games, the national TV games, get a different set of cameras. I'm just saying, from an NFL perspective, that is unacceptable, right? All 16 games
you're right.
should be evenly officiated, and that includes the even number or fair number of cameras to accurately call the most important plays, the touchdowns, right? The goal line cam. But the problem is when it's a midfield play, right? Because that was a bomb to Jefferson, not a play from the 3-yard line where every cameraman's going to be down at the goal line. When it's a play at midfield, and they're not expecting it to be a goal line play, there's nobody down there. There's no cameramen down there that have that angle. That's just unacceptable. Anyway,
I mean, you look at the competition committee, and you look at the competition committee, and Sean Payton saying, "I'm getting off this thing because I don't want to lose. I don't want to get fined or whatever because I don't agree with the competition committee." I mean, these are human beings. So to expect them to do everything right is never going to happen. So yeah, there's a ton of. I mean, you give Roger Goodell $28 million in 2 years. Yep. They definitely can afford to get some cameras for all these games.
Of course they can. And again, clearly Dalvin Cook walked into the end zone, so it's not the end of the world. Unless you have a Justin Jefferson and wanted 3
unless you needed that timeout back that Mike Zimmer wasted.
But that's the point is, what if, let's say you're down at the 1 because we couldn't prove that he was in. What if that goes south? What if there's a fumbled snap or something? I mean, that could have changed the game. Those kinds of plays have to be called correct. And those
I just think all scoring plays, if it's like, I think it's a score, should be reviewed as well, not just scorable plays. Like, stop forcing coaches to have to make decisions that you might have made a mistake on. Like, just look at it. All right, let's look at it quick. Oh, wait, nope, he's down. Move on, coach. Don't even worry about it.
Right, because that's the old cliche, right? If he had been across the line, it would have automatically been reviewed because it was a scoring play.
Correct.
Right? But because they called him down at the 1, they didn't look at it until Zimmer threw the flag. And again, I don't know why he threw the flag.
Yeah, I mean, that happened.
It makes no sense. They were never going to win that.
It happened to the Gophers game, too, though. They didn't have a camera. That one, Chris Altman-Bell clearly caught the ball in the end zone. The ref looked late, and I asked him in the tunnel, and I said, what did you see there? He said, I just saw his back on the white. And then he said, as soon as they played the replay on the big board, he literally was like, I was like, F. Because he said it out. He said the word, but he was like, yeah, it was a touchdown. And then Indiana did not play the review again because they were like, crap, it is a touchdown. So that's why I think it has to change, because these refs are not staring at every single piece of every single play. And you're right. And NFL is way too much money. Like, if you can pay your commissioner $128 million in 2 years, you can afford a camera in the end zone.
That is the correct answer. 651-989-5326 or 1-800-320-5600. 888-900-5326. If we don't get to you, overtime will. Vikings win 34-31 over Green Bay, a gigantic win for the Vikings. They're up to 5-5. They're back to 500. The Packers fall to 8-3. That's Ron Johnson. I'm Corey Cove, and this is Minnesota Vikings Fan Line on KFAN and the Fan.
Justin Jefferson in the backfield to the right of Kirk out of the shotgun on 3rd and goal from the 9. Kirk back to pass, fires to JJ. Touchdown! It is a touchdown from Cousins to Jefferson, and they can't stop JJ. 22-10, Minnesota.
Justin Jefferson finishes with 169 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ron, it's up to you. You don't have to, but we're looking for a LiUNA hardest working player of the game. Who do you want?
Yeah, that's simple. Justin Jefferson, 169 yards. I mean, 2 touchdowns. If not for his big catch at the end, too, they're not in this. So he's clearly shown whenever he has 100-plus yards a season, they won every game. So that's the key.
How about Thielen as well? 82 yards and a touchdown, and a Minneapolis Miracle-esque play there at the end, right, where the corner overplays it, and Thielen kind of tap dances down the line, got us into field goal range. That was a sweet play by Adam. That was a weird like route jump by that corner.
Yeah, Thielen was running a comeback, or kind of like an out comeback, and Kirk Cousins' tendency is to throw to the sticks. And so that's what they did. He had 2 tendency breakers today. One was that one to Thielen. He kind of threw it back shoulder to him more up the field. The second one was the touchdown, the deep one to Jefferson that got stopped at the 1. If you watch the wide angle, Thielen ran an out. 2 DBs jumped Adam Thielen, and Kirk went over their head. They were all assuming Kirk's going to be do what he does in his tendency, which is 3rd and whatever, 2nd whatever. He throws to the sticks. He doesn't really attack, and today he attacked.
Skidder from Isanti. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I was just looking at the rest of the schedule, and I see Niners, hit or miss. And then you got Lions, Steelers, Bears. That looks like an all-win. Rams, same thing. You could go 5-2 the rest of the season and maybe make a push for that big game in February, and then we wouldn't have to tank for Hawks Crank.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it does look like you're going to be favored in about 5 of the last 7, right, Ron, give or take?
Yep.
I mean, it'll be curious. I'm going to be curious to see what the line is on Sunday, but they're going to be favored against the Lions. They will be favored here against the Steelers. I think they will be favored at the Bears, even though obviously historically we struggle at Chicago, even when they have a really bad team.
But Khalil Mack is out,
nighter. I don't know if they're going to be favored against the Rams. I guess it depends on how the next month goes, of course. I doubt they will be favored at the Packers, and they definitely will be favored here against the Bears. So I assume favored in 5, probably underdogs in 2.
Yeah, again, this is the problem, though, about this team. Everybody's going to get their hopes up. And then there's going to be that one game we think they know they should win. They might give the Lions their first win. I hope not. But that's what we have to, we have to just hold on, because this is a roller coaster ride, and just ride it. You really do not know what's going to happen this season. Everybody assumed this Packers game was a loss, and they won it.
Yeah, but we can't understate, too. This game at the Niners, it theoretically could come down to this, right? This might be the difference maker in 7 weeks, that if you win next week against the Niners, maybe you're in. If you lose next week against the Niners, maybe you're out. I guess it depends, of course, on how the rest of the Niners season goes. But you wonder if that tiebreaker next week is going to be the difference maker when it comes playoff time. We'll see.
Right. Yep.
All right, one final call, and then we'll toss it over to Vikings overtime here in a second. Dave from Minneapolis. Hi, Dave.
Hey, guys. Dave Ehrlich. How are you?
Doing fine.
How's it going?
Good. Let's end this with a couple of things. First of all, do you guys both agree? I thought that Kubiak called such a great balanced and opened up a little bit. I disagreed with one of the callers earlier. I thought he actually opened it up and had a great game of play calling, opened it up to Jefferson and Thielen and everybody. But the one thing I wanted to ask Ron, do you remember when we did a fair catch at one point, and one of their players, Green Bay, came over and just kind of knocked us while we caught the ball? Is that a penalty? And I guess I was wondering on that, because I thought there was a 2-yard thing. And then I'll hang up and just let you guys know that I'm predicting, I said it on Common Show 2 weeks ago, 7 of the last 10 games we win and we're in the playoffs.
Well, I mean, it's setting up nice for that. Do you have any idea what he's talking about with the fair catch?
Yeah, it was. Dede Westbrook did a weird. He did his fair catch, but it wasn't like you're supposed to continuously do it for a good second or two just to make sure everybody knows. He did the big one arm swipe and then ran towards the ball. So he did it so long ago. I don't think. I think it was what's his name? 19. His brother's Equanimous St. Brown. He's the one that did it, and he didn't hit him. He just kind of grabbed him from behind as if he was going to tackle him. It was no harm, no foul. If he had blown him up, yes, they probably would have thrown the flag. If he had hit him even harder, he'd have thrown the flag. It was more of a grab from behind just to make sure there was a fair catch. And you can see Dede Westbrook kind of signal to the ref, like, hey, I called a fair catch. Why not? It was a no call. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Ron, next week, 3:25 against the San Francisco 49ers. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to you next week.
All right, you too. Are you having canes for Thanksgiving? Or are you actually going to have turkey?
No, I'm not eating turkey. Are you nuts? Did we just meet?
So no stuffing, no potatoes, no greens, no green beans?
Absolutely not. Gross.
So you just eat just chicken tenders?
Yeah, Thanksgiving is the exact same as the other 364 days for me.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it is, but there's me. I'm a disaster.
Other
I get it. Yeah, there's not really other
So you
food.
have canes for Christmas too then, huh?
Who cares? Why not? Being so judgy. Thanks, Ron.
No, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks to Brandon. Thanks to Max. Vikings Overtime is next. This has been Minnesota Vikings Fan Line on KFAN and the Fan Radio.